buckets. From around the world to your backyard.
Zuzu Radio.
Welcome to Zuzu Radio. I'm your host, Brandon. I'm here with...
Donutxslinger.
Donutxslinger, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, man.
Of course. We first met when you came in and spoke to my class as part of a guest speaker series I was running a couple years ago now. And before that, I got to know your work mostly through an album called Slinger's Dub, which I think was, 21 maybe? 2021?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think, it was just after I moved in that place over on Niagara, so yeah.
Right on, yeah. I love that album. And it was great to have you in class because I got to hear a little bit about how you build and manage your craft, you know? And I wanted to ask a ton of questions at the time, but I was like, I think the class should probably lead the discussion or whatever. Yeah. But now I can get real nerdy with my questions and no one can stop me. So, but before we do that, let me first say that you're basically what I'd call a beat scientist. I describe your music as lo-fi, instrumental hip-hop, based on samples from a lot of different genres. Does that sound right?
That's about fair, yeah.
Okay. And we're going to cover a lot of ground today, but I thought maybe we'd start off with how music arrived in your life. How did you discover you had a passion for this stuff?
Oh, so music has kind of just always been around me. I was in the church choir as a kid, school band, my dad was a DJ when he was younger, so he always was just playing all types of sounds, both hip-hop, and then eventually we got into the samples that they were using to make those songs. And then my mom's all R&B and gospel, and I just had a lot of influence around me all the time, But over time, I ended up getting my own instruments and learning how to play things. I think first DAW I had was Cubase.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I bought this Digitech pedal that I got from my guitar, came with it, and I had no clue what I was doing. But I maybe did a couple looped up, just messing around things, but never knew how to export anything, never knew how to do any of that stuff. So.
Oh, really? Couldn't even get it out of the computer?
Yeah, it was just kind of just messing around. But eventually, once I graduated high school, I got a hold of a Novation Launch Key Mini, and that came with Ableton. And around that time, I got involved with some of my cousins who were making music, but they all were using Fruity Loops, which was a whole different game. I tried to get into that and just couldn't figure it out, so I went back to Ableton and just been stuck on there since, just making sounds,
Yeah. So in the beginning, did it seem to come naturally? It's interesting for me to hear you say that instruments were a part of the beginning, because I know the world you're working in now is a lot of chopping, slicing, dicing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But do you feel like having a foundation in instruments affects the way that you're cutting samples and sort of building?
So I'd say so, but I don't really think it's such a conscious thing. It's just more a ear training, I guess. I play by ear for the most part, even with my instruments. So
yeah, same.
It's just kind of feeling things out and understanding how chopping samples, you kind of pick a sound, I guess, and you base the chop off of said sound to make that line up, and it tends to make all the rest of the things flow together, at least in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, one of the biggest parts of this style of work, I think, is having great taste. You have to know what you like and how to, and maybe even envision a future for this thing where it's not exactly as it is now. It's, it's more, flipped than lifted,
Yeah.
I find that really interesting in your work. Sometimes you have moments where I'm like, oh, I can kind of hear where that came from. And other times I'm like, I don't know where this came from, That's really cool. What about the grid? Because I find maybe with sampling, the first thing that you've really got to understand is how to get things to work with each other in session. Did you have trouble with gridding at first, or how did you figure that part out?
So I trying to think how to break it down. When I started using Ableton, it was more just playing around with things, just understanding the software, I guess. And back then, I didn't know how to turn the quantized setting off, so it was just always on for things. But over time, I figured out how to turn it off, and it was just kind of, some things are intentionally left, off the grid, and then others might be on just to keep timing. But for the most part these days, I don't really quantize specifically too much. I'll chop loops to fit bars, I guess you can say. So I don't know if you want to consider that quantizing, but
like working it to a beat you've created, so it's not like totally gridded. It's like sort of loose enough and human.
And even the drums, sometimes I'll just put those in, just tap and stuff. Like what I've been doing with the Mark II now, the SP404. I'll load up just a bunch of drum sounds and just kind of like tap away at whatever. But I'll record the whole thing, and then I'll go back in and kind of just lift a section, or I may chop it up and play in the actual, I guess, rhythm from those slices, so.
Yeah, so you're like sampling yourself.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've always done that, yeah.
Oh, I love that, yeah. That's something that I didn't figure out until a lot later on, that if I sample myself, it's almost like I'm working with another musician.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It kind of breaks your habit, your routine. I feel like that's really key for making good stuff. Are there people that inspire you in terms of how you build? Are there people that, like, do you watch, there's tons of people out there that are doing sort of live sessions as they're building. Yeah. Are there people that you look at and are like, oh, I'm learning so much from this guy or that guy?
So Stolen Drums was actually a major influence for that type of stuff. It was actually right around the time I got on Twitch to like stream games and things. He was streaming there and YouTube and Periscope, the Twitter thing.
Yeah.
But he would just load up and just play music, and just chop stuff live sometimes, or he'd pull in vinyl record suggestions from, the crew, and he'd go out and buy them, and then he would just start chopping them up in front of people. You as he's like doing things, he would kind of walk you through it as to what he's doing, I guess, and he would it just offered a lot more perspective on things, I guess, like a lot of things I was already doing but just didn't understand why it was doing what it did, or how to achieve that sound without a plugin or something, It was
right at a foundational level, like what's happening in the track that's making it do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or explaining like what's the term? Is it the DOS effect or Haas effect? Something.
Haas
there you
effect?
go. Yeah, he was talking about how when he does like hi-hat, sometimes if you throw a delay on it a certain way, it kind of creates like this, not necessarily a ghost rhythm in the background, but it just does something wonky with them where you get another layer to the sound.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I like when I mess something up and I'm like, oh my God, that's better than anything I could ever have thought of, intentionally. Yeah. The accidents are really where it's at. But how about now, that you have a background in instruments, do you ever play into the track, or are you always kind of pulling from, aside from playing in the drums yourself, which is something you're doing, do you ever have guitar on a track?
Oh yeah.
Actually,
like most of the things on, let's see, I'm trying to like remember titles off the top of my head, and I just can't.
You've got like 40 albums, dude. That's right.
I mean, a lot of those that I post are just like singles, but I have so much music just sitting around. I'm actually trying to organize now to start putting out. The issue is going back to a lot of things years later, I have a different stance on like mixing and things like that. So
yeah, I definitely know that the process of like rediscovering something you had, realizing you have all this new knowledge that could make it better, then going back into the rabbit hole and trying to lift it up. Then you might pause it. A year goes by. You go back. You've learned more. It's like a never-ending cycle,
And then it's always just like your taste changes too. So it's like I don't even really want this to sound this way anymore. I want it to be this. So
yeah. Actually,
the Slinger's dub song itself is me playing guitar. That's such an old song too. That's the funny part. And then Tourmaline Skyway is all me on guitar. The Wayward Wind songs. That's all. The bass line, all the rhythm guitar and all that is me, yeah.
That's really cool.
I have so many that I actually do. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, just looking through right now.
It has such a I mean, it doesn't feel separate from the things that are sampled, though. They feel like married together in a really nice way.
Yeah.
What is your mixing process like? How do you get sort of consistency across songs? Because a lot of your albums, they just feel like a vibe all the way, you know, song to song to song. It feels so cohesive. How do you manage that?
So I feel like it just comes down to just kind of putting polishing touches at the end of things, you know. Like Pluviophonics, for instance, when that album was made, I should say, and a lot of those songs are over the course of at least like 2 years maybe. And there were some that didn't sound as cohesive, I guess you can say, but after understanding, like, okay, I'm going to put all these together, it kind of started to work them to where it was like, okay, I can add this sort of fuzz on it, and it won't sound too different from this next song that's going to come up, or understanding how to kind of pace your projects in a way to get them to flow a little better, I guess, helps. So, but yeah, as far as like actual mixing stuff down, like even for that project, I had no idea about trying to like take out certain frequencies to open up the mix.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff is real rough. Going back and listening to it now with ears that understand, you know.
Sure.
But now, yeah, I'm kind of getting more locked in with that side of things, the more technical aspects, like understanding, taking out low frequencies that don't make sense in every sound, because then when you finally get to the master, you have a lot more room to work with, I guess, as far as the sounds go, you know.
Yeah, that took me a long time to realize, too, just how much mud can accumulate in certain frequency bands, and also the idea of subs being so powerful but not necessarily as audible. Yeah. And cutting, you know, below 30 hertz to open things up, a lot of times you're not losing anything, but you're gaining so much. Do you notice an area, and it's song dependent probably, where you are always kind of pulling down to get stuff out? Like, is there like a muddy range for you?
For me, it usually tends to be somewhere like in the middle, but it's just, again, just usually when I make my beats now, I'm always on my lunch break, just kind of firing through stuff.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I'll get home and kind of just spit out ideas, you know. But then I'll go back like a week later and be like, all right, yeah, this sounds awful, you know. But like the concept's there, so you kind of rework things. And a lot of times, even in that process, like as I'm remixing things and, you know, adding in effects, I'm like, yeah, I don't even like this, you know. And I'll just scrap the sample and throw something else on, or I'll take the drums off and put some more drums, or just might not even put drums in, you know. It just kind of, it's interesting coming back over time and hearing things differently and understanding like, all right, maybe this is what this actually needs instead of what I did first.
Yeah, it seems like you have a pretty good ability to not be precious with the material, to know when to just throw something out, you know, and when to rebuild, when to completely start over. Was it hard in the beginning to throw something away, or has it always been like, you know, right away if it works or not?
Yeah, no, I was always just kind of, and what I'll do is, like my file organization is awful. You know, I just got into numbering files a couple months ago. Finally,
Project 1, Project 2, Project 3.
Well, yeah, it's like I'm up to 1190, I think, right now.
Oh man!
And even that's just not even all that's just the actual Ableton sessions, not even the beats themselves. And I'll make multiple beats in a session a lot of times. So, yeah, I don't know. It's I'll do like, I'll start a song and I'll name it like, you know, this date and whatever, 80 BPM, and then I'll save a copy if I want to change something, and then be like version 2 or version 3 or something. Or if it's something completely different, I might just name it something totally different. But
yeah, that sounds like a good system though. With all the alterations you're making, you probably need to have it pretty well organized to know where.
Because then that way you can always say, I don't like this thing today, but if I want to come back a month, you know, a year from now and flip through stuff, that might inspire something new. So
in your newer work, is there anything super old that you salvaged from the graveyard of ideas?
Let's see. So this song Fans Here actually is something I made forever ago, just on a whim, just messing around, you know. Like, it's funny, all the kind of more dancey beats that I make are just jokes.
Yeah.
It's just me just feeling like I need to just loosen up my fingers, and I'll just kind of tap some stuff out. And
yeah, there's a lot of value in just experimenting without thinking I'm going to finish this. I'm just trying something new.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like you're always making things.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like I use the term obsessive and compulsive for the way that I interact with music. Like I just can't live without it, and it really is like in my mind all day. Do you find with the pace that you're on right now, it must be similar to that, where you're always looking, you know, like, I could grab that, or maybe when I get home I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Even the idea of lunch break songs, you know, where you're like, I've got 20 minutes, I can get something out. Does it feel like this prolific pace, does it feel natural? Does it feel draining sometimes, or is it always just right?
So I feel like it just fits, you know. I've always kind of been this way. Like even when I first started, I would make my beats on the train headed to work, you know, or like I would get home and shower, eat, and then go straight to just messing around with beats and stuff. Or like I'd have them just playing while I'm gaming or I don't know, skateboarding or whatever. A lot of times I'll just bounce stuff out so I can sit with it for a bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of do day-to-day tasks and think like, okay, does this feel right to be able to be something that's out in the world, you know?
Yeah. That's a good testing ground for it. Just take it for a spin.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times that's how it is. You're supposed to do like the car test or, you know, listen on different headphones to see how things fit with the mix too anyway, so
yeah,
it tends to work out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you do the car test. I find like the car, even though it might not be a great representation of like the authentic sound, it shows me what's wrong really easily. Just because I feel like I've listened to so much music in the car, I can tell what's off. Do you feel the same way? That's
big
revealing?
time. And that's changed that's a big reason why I started to try to get better mixes. I'd bounce it into my car and already the stereo's kind of boosted the low end anyway. So I'd bring that in and it's just everything is just muddied out, you know. Like, all right, I just got to go back and get scrapped.
Right. It's weird. Oh, so what are you listening on when you're in your sort of mixing position? What are you putting back on?
There's some headphones. I got some Audio Technica headphones I'll toss on. If I'm at home, I'll bounce between those and my monitors I have. You know?
Okay.
But if I'm like just kind of bouncing stuff out, listen, I got these like little cheesy Galaxy earbuds, you know. But these actually have a pretty good image most of the time. So
I was gonna say the same thing. One thing that I really rely on are the Apple earbuds. Like, first of all, I can tell they're bass heavy. Like they're definitely pushing some of that up. But a lot of things sound good on them. So if I am like overwhelmed with bass listening to them, I know I've got a problem in one of the bands. Like I gotta get it out. But yeah, I feel like that and whether I'm listening loud or soft is a huge difference in terms of what's poking out and what's not. Do you do that like a volume adjustment to see?
Big time. Like even in the car, I don't have like a special amp or anything separate for the stereo. I'll just kind of swapped out the stereo that's in there, and the car's from '88, so everything's all, you know, old. So
oldie.
Yeah, if you turn it down low enough, the low end just completely just disappears most times, you know.
Oh, wow.
So I'll notice if I'm still getting like a lot of that coming through, it's like, all right, it's just definitely pumping way too much, you know.
88, man, good year. Is there a cassette player in there? What was in there?
There was a CD player. There might have been a cassette player. The original stereo is in my trunk. I haven't looked at it in a while. Yeah, but
wild.
I just swapped it out for something I could toss CDs in and Bluetooth connect and stuff like that.
Damn.
Going back to this whole idea of creating on your lunch break, I really love this image of you like really scrambling and then getting back to work.
Oh yeah.
But I noticed on Instagram you had posted two different versions of one idea, basically, right? Kind of surveying what the taste was for either which one, you know. Do you find that often you have multiple versions of one sort of like source sample?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And how do you, like, aside from asking your audience, how do you decide which one is right? How do you know?
So I kind of keep all of them, like, and then I'll just use them separately. Like, it's funny you say that because the stuff that I've released recently, a lot of those songs share, like, not necessarily specific sections of the samples, but the same song that I've pulled from, I should say. You know,
like a different part of the same song.
Yeah, like let's see, I can tell you like specifically right now. So for Perpetual Motion. No, I lied. let's see, which one of these is it? In Bloom, there you go. The last song on In Bloom is Let It Go. So there's that part, and then the opening song for Perpetual Motion is Fight Night. That sample is like literally the next section of, you know, and then I think Rosebuds may be the section before both of those, if I remember correctly. I can't recall right now off the top of my head. Both of those projects, mainly Perpetual Motion, though, was made from beats that I actually am using for an EP for somebody.
Okay.
He brought a bunch of vinyl records over, my boy Alex Anani. He brought a bunch of vinyl records over and just wanted me to sample stuff and was like, you know, just let's make something, you know. And literally I would just pull up a song. I actually recorded all the songs in Ableton. I'll drop one in, make its own group, and just kind of build a track that way. But I made it a point to try to just make something from each one so I could just kind of more so work my muscles, I guess, to step outside of my box, but as well have a lot of variety for him to choose from. So
Yeah. Is that where the Crumb sample came from?
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
All those he brought over a Crumb record, and it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, I really like this song. I was like, oh, there you go.
That's a really good sort of way to set it up where someone else is sort of bringing their collection to you and then
Yeah.
you're sifting through their stuff. Mm-hmm. I love any opportunity to flip something on its head because that's where you get the good sounds.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
How long would you say it takes to finish a song from start to finish? What are you looking at turnaround time?
Oh, man, that's it's a big window, honestly. It's like I've got stuff I've done in like 20 minutes. I've got stuff that I've done in, you know, 2 years. It's like, you know, it just kind of depends on, I guess, really what my ear is feeling at the time. Because a lot of times I'll feel like, okay, this is doing too much. I need to figure out what to take out, or, you know, oh, I need to add something to this. Or a lot of times it's just, I already have a predetermined way of how I want something to come out. So as long as I get the mix kind of pre-done, I guess, or all the effects that I already want to use on it, I already know what I'm going to do, and I'll just kind of rock it out that way, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And when you're not working with someone and you're looking for your own samples, are you pulling from your own vinyl collection, or what is your process for crate digging? How do you do it?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm pulling from my own vinyls. I don't really have a ton, but I've got a lot of stuff with a lot of dense quantities of samples, I should say. You know, like I've got these two boxes of, what is it, Reader's Digest, like just lounge music. I don't know. It's like it's crazy. It's like you get a box of 10 different records, 2 sides to each one, and they're all just like different genres. Like one is like cocktail piano, one is Spanish guitars, one is gonna be like jazz. You know, it's just a lot of that stuff. I was just kind of loading up and just bouncing through each one, just trying to make something from each track, just to, again, just train my ear and just flex muscles, you know. Mm-hmm. In fact, the Mood Music project that's on there, that one is one of the records. It was called Mood Music.
From this Reader's Digest collection?
Yeah, so I was just kind of bouncing through, and each of those tracks is made from a different track on there.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah. What's really cool about that is I have to imagine most people have never heard any of that content.
Oh, yeah. It's just it's so random. And a lot of it is covers, you know, or them playing popular music, but it's just, you know, somebody's specific band.
Yeah,
some random
interpolated
band.
in a different way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it must be interesting to see how memory interacts with sampling. You know, because sometimes you get songs that everybody has heard, you know, and then when it gets flipped around, it's like really exciting to hear it in a new way. Mm-hmm. And then there's times where you can't put your finger on this, but it feels old. It's like something from this other era. And then you hear it through this new lens. You hear a beat on something that would never have a beat. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting to re-experience it in a new way.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's so strange to know when you found a thing that's right, you know, like I want to be like, so, you know, how do you do it? But there's really, we've kind of gone around this. It's like you just kind of know, right?
Yeah, it's really like I'm very open to what I use, I should say. You know, like when I play guitar, for instance, I'm not like playing hip hop samples. You know, I'm usually playing like just replaying rock songs I like, you know, or just freely strumming along, but I'm just letting it run recording, and I'll just go back in and chop some stuff up. Or piano, I'm just kind of running around circle of fists for the most part, just because that's what I know for now. But it's real free for the most part. I wouldn't exactly say I got a science to it quite just yet, or at least not that I'm aware of, you know.
Right. There might be something happening subconsciously. Yeah. What about, so is your guitar, are you just DI'd in, or are you going through an amp, or how do you capture that?
If I'm like playing my acoustic, I'll just mic up. I got just like a little corny, I don't even remember what brand it is. It's like,
as long as it works.
Yeah,
that's
I
all
swear
that
it was like $20 at Radio Guitar Center years ago. I bought it just to use when I use my PC for gaming.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So it's like, I can imagine the mic you're talking about now.
Yeah, it's like it's literally just, it's not even a condenser mic. It's just like a straight, you know. But yeah, if I'm using my electric, I have that Digitech pedal. And I'll just plug that in, and it's got like a USB I can connect most times. But
oh, cool.
Lately, what I've been doing instead of that is just plugging straight into the front of my interface and just going from there, you know.
Yeah. Just because I imagine, do you find yourself affecting the guitar, chopping it up, and doing things to it in programs? So it's not like you're trying to get this perfect rock sound out of it. It's like just get it in there and then mess with it. Yeah.
Granted, I mean, the pedal itself has a ton of just pre-installed like emulated sounds, I guess you can say. Like a lot of the bass lines there's a bass effect on it, or
oh, that's cool.
There's one that can make it sound like an acoustic guitar. You get like a bunch of crazy crystal reverb sounds, and it's insane, all the stuff that's in there. But being able to modulate it like that and then bouncing into something and even take it further is also cool.
Yeah, definitely. In your process, do you find that you start with one instrument usually and build, or are you kind of just like every session is different? Like a lot of people, I feel like personally, I guess because I'm a drummer, I'm always trying to build the rhythm first and throwing melody on top. And then if I force myself to do that in reverse, it always produces something really different. Do you have like a way that you lean on that?
Not necessarily. I do find that I tend to do drums first just because I just tends to be how it is. But a lot of times I have the sample predetermined already before I even, like, I'll listen to the sample itself and I'll hear some drums on it. So it just happens that I make a drum pattern before I even, get that recorded in. So I'll just be listening to music throughout the day and just think of ideas,
I love that. I love that. It's already happening up here.
Yeah,
it's just not coming out
yet. So when I get home, or even if I got time on lunch, I'll just hop it in and tap some stuff out and maybe drag the sample in, or I'll just name it for this sample and then, keep it pushing.
Have you done much with, like, when I think of samples that have drums in them already, and usually that's where I have to, like, grid it out and, like, kind of get the sense for where were they when they made it and how can I chop it and if I'm going to play along to it. Have you messed with AI removing certain elements from the sample at all, or are you working with it as is?
So, not necessarily. I've done a lot of, like, trying to take things out with an EQ, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
I've tried to, I think I may have done it maybe once as far as using, like, virtual DJ or Serato. The actual, like, DJ software has the stems effect now. So
yeah,
sometimes I would turn whatever off and try to get stuff that way. I know Ableton had this function for a while. They probably still have it, but when I first got Ableton, you were able to try to convert samples to MIDI. So I would do a lot of that stuff and just replay things myself.
Yeah.
Or clean it up to try to get it to fit right. It was real unreliable, I won't lie.
I wonder how that is nowadays. Like, have you...
I haven't even tried it now, but I'm also on, like, Ableton 10, I think, maybe. Or maybe 11. I haven't upgraded yet, so...
I've seen some people play guitar in and turn it into MIDI and then really mess it up, and it sounds wild and cool.
Yeah,
like,
I haven't even thought of that, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Smart.
like, that was a new thing for me. I was See, I've been trying to figure out what can I do with AI? Like, what can I do that is helpful to an artist rather than all the doom talk that everybody's saying? Like, there are going to be no artists anymore. And so I looked at, like, the stem thing is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Being able to go to old songs that I don't have the sessions for anymore and just break the stems out, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But then I use something like Udio, where you, like, type in a sentence and it makes a song, and that freaks me out. Have you ever done that?
I haven't heard of that one. No, that's new.
Yeah.
I must say, so I want to say we had a conversation about this in this Discord I'm in. But I think I was late to the conversation. I was at work, so I got home and drove home. Like had to end the call, drive home, and then hop back in. But yeah, they were the whole day was just talking about how crazy AI is and as a whole. But then I think they started to talk about music just as I started to leave work. So I missed out. They might have brought that up then.
Oh yeah, I'd be curious to know how artists feel about the benefits, because I hear a lot of the negatives. Like one thing that, like the reason I know about this transforming guitar into MIDI thing is because I asked AI, I asked ChatGPT, what is this band Spirit of the Beehive doing on their albums to make them sound like them? And it broke out a list of like 10 bullet points and one of them was this transformed to MIDI thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool, because it's like having a teacher a little bit, you know? And so that's good. But I can just see how it's so cheap and easy to use, and it's like anytime someone that isn't a musician needs music, they don't have to get a musician.
Yeah,
they just get the computer. Yeah, that's where I see where it might be kind of difficult to have space to. But even now, it feels like impossible to make a living on music. It's just a passion.
Yeah, I've been kind of looking at that whole sync licensing thing.
Yeah,
and even that's real like not necessarily compromising in my mind, I guess, but that's something where you more so try to appeal to these executives in an office, I guess you can say, as opposed to just making whatever you make. Like me as a sample-based artist, for the most part, I wouldn't really be able to pitch those to businesses like those because they can't use them if they have to pay for the sample.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of that kind of gets lost. So you're forced to kind of make these real, not necessarily generic sounding songs, but you're forced to just make things that kind of sound like other things so that they'll pick it and be like, all right, here's your check, and it's
yeah, absolutely.
That's one lane you can take, sure, but I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm just about to start a project. It's like more of a professional thing. It's for a company, know, and their advice was make music that your 14-year-old niece would like and your 89-year-old grandma would like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh boy, that's like distilling it down to something that's so common or conventional, that they would all like it. As an artist, you're letting go of the experimentalism of everything.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate. I feel like, I was just talking to my dad about how I feel like one of the best parts about my journey has been that it's always been what I wanted and not what I was forced to do, you know? And so the freedom is worth more than the money, I guess, in a way.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Speaking of copyright, though, do you ever get into any like trouble, or not trouble per se, but like your stuff is on streaming, right? You're on Spotify and all that, and I've done the same thing. I just snuck a few through, no one said anything yet. But is that a concern ever, of like getting a letter in the mail someday?
So it was for a very long time, which is why there's such a gap between me making music and then finally being like, all right, I'm gonna start putting these out.
Oh yeah.
But I already used to stress about it so bad. Like even posting stuff on SoundCloud, I thought people were gonna show up at my door and
yeah.
But I had a few people who are kind of in the industry, I guess, really just say at the end of the day, the way you got to look at it is just who are you? You're just some kid making music in his basement. You're some guy making music in his bedroom, and it's, unless you've got some crazy following or, you're really making a ton of money off of it, it's most they're going to do for the most part is just tell you to stop, and then you just take it down. But by not putting it out in the world, you kind of limit yourself as far as other people you can work with, or just, amassing people who like your work or things like that because they won't ever hear it, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that stand in the way of finishing something.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of, someone making a legal complaint against is one thing, but then
Yeah.
there's also just the idea of, like what we've talked about, is you go back and you listen to something you've already done and all you think about is the ways you're better than that now, or how I don't really make that kind of sound anymore. And if you never put it out, then it all is in that mindset, forever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so hard to get over that. I feel like that's a major hump for any artist to like just break through and be like, okay, it's not perfect. I need to not aim for perfect. This is just, I feel good about it now and let it ride.
Big time. Yeah, like I've even had times where I considered like deleting all of my old works from just everywhere,
man,
all
really?
the years of SoundCloud stuff, all the Bandcamp stuff, all the stuff on the streaming services that's old, like just because I used to think, all right, well, this isn't who I am anymore, so maybe I don't want people coming and being introduced to me through this, and then like they come to go through the rest of my catalog and it's something completely left field.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it shows your journey, I guess, so you can say, okay, well, this is where we started, and you can honestly hear over the years of like what's changed, I guess, as far as even just down to basic mixing or, effects I like to use and equipment I started using and things like that. So yeah, I decided I might as well just keep them up.
Well, as a listener, I'm grateful that you came back from the ledge. We're like, all right. What's weird is a lot of fans, tend to like the old stuff more than the new stuff. It's like just like a cliche in a way.
Oh, yeah.
And the artist is always like, no, the new stuff's better. Forget the old stuff. It's like that tension between the two. So yeah, it's super tempting to want to be like, okay, that never happened. Let's just forget about all that. But I think you're absolutely right. There's something to be said for witnessing the journey.
Yeah.
And how it brings you in on the process. Like as a listener, you feel the changes. That's pretty exciting. You've got this album that just came out, and they were songs that didn't make the cut for the album that's coming up. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Before we talk about the new album, how do you have a ballpark on like how many songs are just in the wings? Do you know how many songs are just not
just floating out there? Oh man, like at least 1,000, I'd say.
Oh my God.
And like it's because I just make so much stuff,
Yeah.
And I get into these pockets where it's like, all right, well, I don't want to release things just as singles all the time, So it's also fun for me to actually make projects out of things because it forces me to be able to. It's like solving a puzzle, I guess, in a way. What I tend to do for my projects is I'll start with the first song, and I'll start with the last one, and then I'll try to find a way to connect them.
Yeah,
And
make a sandwich.
Yeah, that's even how I make my like sets. I already know how it's gonna start. I know how it's gonna finish, and I just gotta fill in between. So I like kind of pick a bunch of stuff that's in similar areas or that I feel like would blend well together. A lot of times when I make songs, I'll be like, oh well, no matter what this song sounds like, it would just sound cool after this one or before this one, whether it's a project or a set, So,
Yeah, you can just sense how they're gonna string together.
So like I'll actually write in a book like, all right, this one with an arrow to this one, things like that, and then this transition into it and all that stuff. Like
It reminds me of like storyboarding a film or something, where if you have the beginning and the end, you're good.
Yeah.
Like then the other stuff, it'll lead itself to its end point.
yeah, exactly.
But if you don't have the ending, that's when it's the hardest to tell the story. It's like, how do I finish this? Wrap it up.
Big time.
What about releasing? So like, do you have? You're saying you try to avoid just doing all singles and doing some albums too. Do you have a way of promoting yourself? I mean, it's like hard to even talk about because it's the worst part of this.
Oh yeah, big time.
But
That's the
what's
worst thing
your
I'm at,
style on that?
honestly.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm the worst at. So, like, the very first 2 albums I released are probably the most promoted thing I ever did. I mean, it actually worked out pretty well. For some reason, there's this one song on the second one that just people just love, and I can't even remember where it was. It's like just some random pocket of the world that people just really love that song. So
Wow.
it's like, all right, that's cool.
You never know what's gonna hit.
Yeah, but like promoting that was like I did a lot of just like quirky like little visuals saying, hey, like I got an album coming out, and then chopped some of the sections of the songs to them. And then I also like did paid Facebook ads with those, so You know, you got people coming in. But that was before I understood how Facebook ads worked. So I just tried to get as big of an audience as I could, you know, get it in front of as many people as I could.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to target your target audience, I guess, and narrow it down to people who you know are going to actually benefit from your product, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I guess, yeah, that's probably like the smart way is to think about what your demographic is and just really push to that in particular. Although that is like probably the smartest way. Sometimes, like what you said, it will happen where this pocket of the world that you didn't expect suddenly grabs it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do the wide net, you would have never hit them.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's a game that's really hard to play because you already made the art, and that was hard.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've talked about this in a couple episodes. It's like it's a complete restart of the artistic process to promote it.
Yep, big
and
time.
For a lot of artists, for me personally, I don't like using language around my art that's like that. Like, hey, everybody, check this out.
Yeah, it feels real performative and just like you're soliciting yourself to like a major degree, you know?
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, but the other thing is that, like, I think Tyler, the creator, was talking about how it's like you spent, 100 hours on this thing and you made one post about it. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
It's really, you got to value it more than that. I always hear his voice in my head when I'm doing it. I'm like, I don't want to do it, but I think I gotta,
Yeah, that's literally where I'm at with it right now. That's why the album is not out yet, because I'm like, all right, I need to figure out a way to actually put this out in the world in a way that makes sense, and then I also want to promote it well. So
yeah,
I'm actually gonna try to get with a few of my friends that have had success with that type of stuff and try to learn from them before I actually do that.
That's a good way to go about it. So the album is made. It's just not out because...
more or less. Like I'm actually about to swap a track out. Like something I made a couple weeks ago sounds better in the spot.
Oh,
it's like the second to last thing, or third to last thing. So I'm gonna swap those, and then it's gonna come down to just going through the mixes and adding a few transitions and skits here and there, and then that's that.
Yeah, skits to connect it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, not necessarily, like I don't have them yet, but I kind of got a general idea what's going to go where and things. It's probably not going to be as cohesive as Pluviophonics was, where it was that aliens kind of theme.
Yeah.
But it's stuff that's going to work, I should say. It'll tie everything together in a neat way.
What about for as far as learning from others? Can we drop some names as far as people that you're going to go to and say, hey, show me the way?
Oh, yeah. So my homie from here, actually, he lives out in Cali right now. He used to go by Diverse, but his name currently as an artist is It's Just Dre, D-R-A. He's been killer at all that stuff. Like, he's the guy in the group that knows all the music business. So we always all kind of bring it to him anytime we need any type of info like that. Like BMI and ASCAP, I have no clue about these days. So
Same.
that's going to get, that's something that's going to get worked in there. But yeah, he's killer with his promotions always, Let's see, Matt Jameson is a homeboy of mine. That's Matthew Jameson on platforms. But he's somebody that I've like watched his growth, So I watched him literally just kind of take off, and he's very good at promoting and things, and he's actually the one that kind of introduced me to the whole sync licensing era too. So
okay,
I'm gonna try to pick up some tidbits about that. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. Just all the names flowing in.
Yeah,
Gaines is a local rapper. He's
Gaines.
big on that. Yeah. I'm actually trying to get him and Pegues on a song together. It was a beat, one of those beats in that post, actually, the second beat. I figured I'd try to get those two on there. Yeah,
I mean, two heavy hitters,
And when I was hearing it, it just felt like their voices would just sit right in it. Their cadences and I don't know, but
And that might go on the new album, or is that like a separate?
No, that's just like a separate idea.
Gotcha.
What I would like to do eventually is have something where it's like kind of hosting an album, I guess to say. So it's more like how you'll see The Alchemist does, where you'll just kind of have like the Yacht Rock song or tapes or whatever, where it's just all his beats, but it's other artists.
Bunch of features.
Yeah, pretty much. So
yeah,
something like that. Hopefully happen in the next couple of years. I got a few tracks that I've already got landed or people have written for. I just got to get recorded and things like that. Like Chill Ali, there's a rapper AM that's around here. I got those two on a song together, hopefully, and then each of those with a separate one, and then Gaines, hopefully with Piggies and a couple of other folks, like Skoob is my cousin. Hopefully he'll give me some of the beats
Skoob.
Hopefully he'll give me some of the songs that we already have together for that, But there's a lot of people that I really want to work with here. I just haven't really had a chance to, I guess, because of me, I'm not always the best at being present in the right rooms at the right times, I guess to say. So I'll just tend to miss out on those moments of being able to be like, hey, like, so let's lock this day in and get this done,
Yeah, no, I feel that. There are times where my social reserves, like my ability to like go be social in that way, are low. And the opportunity's there, and I'm like, you know what? I just don't have it right now. And and even conversations like this, I was talking with a friend, just saying like, there are times where I'm like, I don't know if I have it to do this sort of thing, but every time I do, I just leave sort of on a high. Like I'm like, oh, that was really good. It's so nice to connect with the community. You know? And so I just try and remind myself in those moments. It doesn't always work, but sometimes. What about Resampled? It's called Resampled, right? The collective.
Yeah.
Are you working with those guys on anything, or how they doing?
So we started a tape. Process has been on kind of a hold. Just a lot of life things happening. I've been moving around, and Alex has been in a ton of bands, so he's been busy with that type of stuff. So kind of took a break from music for a bit, but he's actually back now. I actually just sold him my old SP, so he's been back to working and stuff.
He's got some gear to make some stuff.
Yeah. Program, I think, was working on a couple of his projects and things, but we've got a lot of music that we were trying to put together. I think we just need a few more tracks and then try to tie it together, and then we're gonna get that out there hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully sometime soon.
And what about any shows? Are you performing? I saw you over at Black Dots recently. What else you got coming up?
Man, I don't think I really have anything for the second half of the year so far. I had 2 battles, like the 2 of the beat battles early this year. Let's see, I did that show at Galaxy. No, yeah, was that this year? Galaxy Glass, or was that last year? What's the man? There's a smoke shop on Delaware, and I'm blanking on the name right now.
I think is it Galaxy?
I think Galaxy is the one that's down on Main.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that. I feel so bad right now because it was such a cool spot and they were so welcoming.
We'll put it in the notes when you remember.
But I've had a couple sets earlier in the year. This second half is kind of murky right now. I'm actually going to be starting school in September, so I'm going to see how schedules work when that starts. I'll be working full time and then immediately going there after.
Man.
So it's from 9 to 5 at work, and then heading out to Orchard Park immediately and going there till 11, 4 days out of the week.
You're gonna have to be like in the car doing your beat on the way there. So.
Might find a way to make it work. Yeah.
If anyone will, I'm sure you will.
Oh,
yeah. I think we're gonna kind of wrap it up, but before we do, how should people find you? What's the best way to?
Honestly, Donutxslinger, DONUTX Slinger, on any platform. Literally everything is all under that same moniker. Instagram's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me if you have to, just because that's probably the app I use the most. But yeah, hopefully you feel it need to check out my stuff.
Yeah, go check it out. I just want to say, it's been a real pleasure talking with you about all the stuff. You know, your craft is super interesting to me. I'm a huge fan. I don't know if I
appreciate
really
it.
said this, but I mean, like, I listen all the time. And when I found your music, I was like really excited to hear someone doing this kind of stuff, and it opened me up to, you know, the resampled guys and Jackson, Slow So, and things like that. And so it's just been really great to learn about that community and to see you guys so active and to be so prolific. I'm always getting new stuff, so it's exciting for me. So
Appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, man. You provide a needed pocket here as well.